If you're watching this video, you're probably considering a pair of these for the headlights in your new Edge Mustang. I know on my Ford Mustang Roush, as you can tell right there, those are the old original ones. The ones that I replaced those with, they're starting to get yellow, old, and tired as well. And I have to admit, these headlights did pick up my interest. I'm always kind of going for a bit of a OEM look with the car, or at least it's not completely 20 years old. So I want to try a pair out. In this video, I'm obviously going to be going over the unboxing, the install, how to set up the wiring. I really want to do is have an OEM setup turn on system for the LED lights. So instead of it being, wired into the stereo or just directly to the car battery or with a switch, I definitely want to make sure when the car is on, LED lights are on as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open this up and let's go ahead and put these on the car and just see how they kind of look, especially the fit and finish. If you like this type of content or if you have a new Edge Mustang, well, I've been doing Mustangs for the past couple years. Make sure you subscribe down below. Enough of me blabbering. Let's go do some car stuff.
Okay, let's go ahead and get them out of the box. Okay, so taking them out of the box, first things first, they look pretty good. I noticed that the LED is actually at the bottom of the headlight and some of the rubber gasket was a bit gooey. Let's go over some of the tools that I needed for this job. First, I need to get some copper cable. This is 16 gauge right here and it's 100% copper. When it comes to tapping the car for electricity, I'm going to be using circuit adapters, aka tap fuses. This is going to go into the fuse box, and I'll show you where I'm going to put it in. As you can tell, it comes in a couple different sizes, so I grabbed a bag of them. One tool I made sure to get was my wire cutters and strippers. This is going to be an invaluable tool for cutting back all the wiring and also crimping, the next tool that I need. And last, I made sure I had some wire connectors. I want to make sure I have a really secure connection between the wires, so I got a box of these. One thing I wanted to make really clear is to get 100% copper wiring. It's really easy to get aluminum clad copper, but as you can see here, this is 100% copper, and this is also how you strip a wire. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the headlights. Here are the headlights I currently have on my car. They're just some stock replacements I got off of eBay. They lasted well for 5 years, but let's go ahead and upgrade these. Taking out the headlights is easy. There's just two metal tabs you pull up on and you pull the headlight forward. Once you get the headlight out, just make sure to take off both the side indicator light and of course the headlight bulb. And from that, the headlight is free from the car. One thing to mention is the new headlights don't have a bulb, so I'm going to carry over my LED bulbs. Okay, let's get to our power source. Now we're going to go to the fuse box underneath the dashboard and we're going for the wiper motor. The wiper motor has a green 30 amp fuse, which I'm actually going to point out to there. Now the reason why we're going to be using the wiper motor is because the only time it gets power is when the car is on or if the car is running. Again, I want these lights to turn on when the car is on, so there's no extra switches. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a dive underneath the dashboard and let me show you which fuse you want to pull out. Okay, here we are looking at the fuse box and see that green one right there that says 30 on it. We're going to go ahead and take that one out. Now the reason why we're pulling the fuse is because the tap fuse is actually going to take its place. So let's go ahead and take it out. With the fuse out, we're going to insert it into the first slot of the tap fuse. That way our wiper motors still get power. Now it's time to get back underneath the hood. We now have our power source located, but we need to be able to run that red power cable from the inside of the car back to the engine bay. I found this rubber grommet where the engine harness is actually going through. I decided to go ahead and pry it open with a screwdriver, and unfortunately I didn't record this part, but I took a power drill and a drill bit and drilled a small hole through it. After drilling a small hole, I was able to get my wire through. It's a really snug fit, so I don't have to worry about any fumes or anything like that getting into the inside of the car. And luckily, since the grommet is like right next to the gas pedal, well, I was able to get my wires right where the fuse box was going to be. Now it's time to go ahead and strip this wire. So I take my wire strippers, find the correct gauge, put the wire in, and give it a tug. Once I'm done, I give it a twist and I get ready for the tap fuse. I insert my wire into the crimping end of the tap fuse. I use my wire cutters and I use the tip part to go ahead and crush it down. After I'm done crushing it, I give it a tug to make sure it's secure. Once you're done, do not plug it back into the fuse box. Back in the engine bay, I start letting out my power cable. I let it out so it gets to the front of the car, and then I start tucking it back in so it's not noticeable. I'm going to be running the cable across the front of the car, so I take off the radiator cover. I then go ahead and get the new headlights in place, ready to be wired up. I'm going to need to ground the LED lights, so taking the black cable, I'm going to go ahead and strip it. I'm going to add a connector, and then I'm going to attach it to one of the grounding bolts in the engine bay. With that done, I run the cable through the headlight opening in the front of the car, and I get back to working on the red power cables. I now strip the power wire, and while I'm here, I'm also going to strip the red wire coming from the LED. I then give them a twist and start pigtailing them together since I want them to be really connected. Once that is done, I get a red double-sided connector. I go ahead and put it over my two wires and give it a crimp with my wire cutters. As for the rest of the wire, I'm going to run it underneath the rail that is in front of the radiator, and then I'm going to connect the two. So we're going to run all the way to here, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it to this LED light. I go ahead and strip the wire, add it to the connector, and crimp. Moving on to the other side of the car, I start stripping some red power wires and get them ready to be crimped as well. After both red power wires are stripped, I actually pigtail them together before I put a connector on. Once the connector's on, I take my wire strippers and I go ahead and crimp it. For good measure, I add some black electrical tape on the other end just to make sure that there's no openings. Just like on the driver's side, we need to go ahead and ground this LED light too. So I take that black wire, I strip it, I go ahead and give the wires a twist, and I add in a blue connector. Once I got the blue connector on, I go ahead and take my wire strippers and crimp. I also decided for both the ground wires to wrap them in black electrical tape just because the grounding wire is so small. I just didn't want to have anything being open to the air. After that, I run it through the headlight opening, and we're going to go ahead and attach the ground to a grounding bolt under the hood right here. If you haven't done this for the driver's side, go ahead and do it as well. There's a bolt in front of the battery that's a perfect spot. With everything properly connected and grounded, let's see how these work. Before we put our tap fuse back in, we need to put in this orange fuse. The orange fuse is going to be the fuse for our lights, and the green fuse is still going to be for our wiper motor. So let's go ahead and install the tap fuse into the fuse box, and here's what it should look like. And our moment of truth. When the key is on, the lights turn on. With the electrics working, I go ahead and secure the power wire to the radiator support, and then of course I put the cover right back on. I want to make sure that nothing really is standing out here. After all is said and done, it's time to install our lights, so I install the turn signals, and then once I get those in, I go ahead and grab my LED lights and add those in as well. One thing I've noticed with LED lights and aftermarket headlights, sometimes it takes a little bit of grunting to make sure they fit. And like that, we're done. Here's my car running with the LED lights just being on all by themselves. They light up absolutely fine when it's just running lights and fog lights, so this actually looks pretty cool to cruise around in when it's dusk. And here we are with all the lights on, the headlights, the LED strip, and my fog lights. Might be time to change out the fog lights though, those are old HID bulbs. But honestly, overall really impressed with these headlights. I love how they look. I actually installed these in August, so they've held up fine for a couple of months. and I've had no leaking, the LEDs haven't burnt out, so overall, really satisfied with them. Go ahead and pick up a pair and let me know your thoughts. For more Mustang content, go ahead and give me a subscribe.